A hardened Marine, trained for battle, thought he'd face the toughest fights of his life, until he came home to a silent war he never expected. Desperate to understand his son's hidden pain, he plants a recorder in the boy's ear. What he hears next shatters his heart and changes everything. This is a story of love, sacrifice, and the battles fought not on the battlefield, but at home. Before we dive into this emotional journey, make sure to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on notifications. Stories like this remind us of the unseen battles people fight every day, and we want to bring you more of them. The homecoming. The California sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon as Sergeant Daniel "Danny" Mercer stepped out his truck, his boots crunching against the gravel driveway. The scent of salt water hung in the air. Oceanside was only a few miles from the base, close enough to hear the distant roar of fighter jets, but far enough to pretend, for a little while, that he wasn't a Marine. Home. The word should have settled into his chest like a weight lifting, but instead it sat there uneasy. The house looked the same as it had 8 months ago when he'd left for his last deployment. White siding, blue shutters, Lisa's overgrown flower beds lining the walkway. But something felt different. The silence was heavier, the air thicker. Danny adjusted the strap of his duffel bag and took a slow breath before walking inside. The living room was dim, the TV playing some cartoon at low volume. His wife, Lisa, stood at the kitchen counter, chopping vegetables for dinner. She turned when she heard the door, her face breaking into a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Hey, stranger," she said, wiping her hands on a towel before crossing the room to hug him. Danny wrapped his arms around her, breathing in the familiar scent of her shampoo. Something floral, something safe. "Missed you," he murmured into her hair. She pulled back, studying his face like she was searching for something. "How was the flight?" "Long." He forced a grin. "You know how it is." Lisa nodded, but her gaze flickered toward the hallway, toward Noah's room. Danny followed her stare. "He in there?" "Yeah, he's been quiet." Quiet. That word again. Noah hadn't always been quiet. When Danny left, his son had been a ball of energy, all scraped knees and loud laughter, begging for piggyback rides and stories about when you fought the bad guys, Dad. Now the house felt too still. Danny dropped his bag by the couch and walked down the hall, his boots thudding softly against the hardwood. He paused outside Noah's door listening. No sounds, no music, no video games, just silence. He knocked gently. "Noah, you in there, buddy?" A beat, then a quiet, "Yeah." Danny pushed the door open. Noah sat on his bed, hunched over a sketchbook, pencil moving in quick, jagged strokes. He didn't look up. Danny leaned against the doorframe, watching him. His son had grown, his face sharper, his shoulders broader. But it was his eyes that caught Danny off guard. They were older, wary. "Hey, kid," Danny said, keeping his voice light. "What are you drawing?" Noah hesitated, then turned the sketchbook slightly so Danny could see. A soldier, helmet low, rifle raised. The lines were rough, urgent. Danny's chest tightened. "That's really good." Noah shrugged and went back to shading, his fingers smudging the graphite. Danny stepped closer, sitting on the edge of the bed. "You okay?" Another shrug. "Missed you." Danny tried again. Noah's pencil stilled. For a second, Danny thought he might say something. Then he just nodded and kept drawing. The rejection stung more than Danny wanted to admit. He reached out, ruffling Noah's hair like he used to. "Dinner's probably ready. You coming?" Noah nodded again, but didn't move. Danny stood, lingering for a moment before heading back to the kitchen. Lisa was stirring something on the stove, her back to him. "You okay?" Danny asked, keeping his voice low. Lisa didn't turn around. "He's been like that since you left. Barely talks to me. Got in trouble at school a few times. Nothing major, just shutting down when teachers ask him things." Danny frowned. Did something happen? Lisa finally faced him, her expression tight. "Yeah, you left. Again." The words hit like a punch. Before Danny could respond, Noah's bedroom door creaked open. Footsteps padded down the hall, and then Noah appeared in the doorway, his sketchbook tucked under his arm. Danny forced a smile. "Hey." You hungry? Noah nodded, sliding into a seat at the table without a word. Danny exchanged a glance with Lisa. Something was wrong. Really wrong. And for the first time since he'd stepped off that plane, Danny felt like he was standing on unstable ground. That night, after dinner, after Lisa had gone to bed, Danny sat alone in the living room, staring at the dark TV screen. His mind raced. Was it just a deployment? Had something happened while he was gone? Or was it him? A soft sound from down the hall pulled him from his thoughts. Noah's voice. Muffled, barely audible. Danny stood, moving quietly toward his son's room. The door was cracked open, just enough to see Noah curled up in bed, facing the wall. And then Danny heard it, the whisper, "Please don't go again." His breath caught. Noah wasn't angry. He was afraid. Danny stepped back, his throat tight. He had spent years fighting enemies he could see. But this was a battle he didn't know how to win. And for the first time in his life, Sergeant Daniel Mercer felt completely outmatched. The breaking point. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the blinds, painting stripes of gold across Danny's face. He blinked awake, disoriented for a moment. No desert sand, no cot, no distant hum of generators. Just the quiet hum of the ceiling fan, and the faint smell of coffee brewing downstairs. Home. He rolled over, expecting to see Lisa beside him, but her side of the bed was empty, the sheets cool. A glance at the clock told him it was already 8:30. He'd slept later than he meant to. Danny sat up, rubbing his face. His body still operated on deployment time. 4 hours of sleep, maybe 5 if he was lucky. But last night, after hearing Noah's whispered plea, sleep had been impossible. Those 4 words played on a loop in his mind, sharp as shrapnel. Please don't go again. He dragged a hand through his hair and stood, pulling on a warm Marine Corps t-shirt before heading downstairs. The kitchen was empty, but a fresh pot of coffee sat on the counter, along with a note in Lisa's neat handwriting. Took Noah to school. PT appointment at 10. Love you. Danny poured himself a cup, the bitterness grounding him. He leaned against the counter, staring out the window at the backyard. The grass needed cutting. The patio furniture was covered in pollen. Little things, normal things. Things he should have been here to handle. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from Lisa. Noah's teacher called. She wants to meet with us. Today, if possible. Danny's grip tightened around the phone. That wasn't good. He typed back, "What's wrong?" 3 dots appeared, then disappeared. Then finally, "Just meet me at the school at 2:30. No explanation. No reassurance. Danny exhaled sharply. He knew that tone. Lisa only got like this when she was trying to keep it together. The school parking lot was half empty when Danny pulled in, the late afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. He spotted Lisa's SUV near the front and parked beside it. She was waiting for him just inside the entrance, arms crossed, her expression unreadable. "What's going on?" Danny asked as soon as he reached her. Lisa's jaw tightened. Mrs. Alvarez will explain. The walk to the classroom felt like a march to the gallows. Danny's pulse thudded in his ears, his mind racing through possibilities. Had Noah gotten into another fight? Was he failing his classes? Mrs. Alvarez, a petite woman with sharp eyes and a no-nonsense demeanor, greeted them at the door. "Mr. and Mrs. Mercer, thank you for coming." She led them to a pair of small chairs, too small for Danny's frame, and sat across from him at her desk. "First," she said, folding her hands, "Noah is a bright kid. He's creative, observant, and when he engages, he's one of the most insightful students in my class." Danny nodded, waiting for the but. It came. "But," Mrs. Alvarez continued, "he's withdrawn. He doesn't participate. He's been turning in assignments late or not at all. And last week, he got into a physical altercation with another student." Danny stiffened. "Who started it?" "That's not the point," Lisa cut in, shooting him a look. Mrs. Alvarez sighed. "The other boy made a comment about military families." Noah reacted strongly. Danny's blood went cold. "What kind of comment?" Mrs. Alvarez hesitated. "According to witnesses," the boy said, "your dad's probably not even a real Marine. My brother says they just sit around and play cards over there." The words hit like a sucker punch. Danny's hands clenched into fists. He'd heard that kind of crap before, from civilians who didn't have a clue, from politicians who'd never set foot in a war zone. But hearing that some punk kid had said it to his son, Lisa's hand settled on his arm, a silent warning. Danny forced himself to breathe. What happened next? "Noah shoved him," Mrs. Alvarez said, hard enough that the boy fell and scraped his knee. Noah didn't deny it. When I asked him why he did it, he just said, "He doesn't get to talk about my dad." Pride and guilt warred in Danny's chest. Noah had defended him, but he'd also gotten in trouble because of him. Mrs. Alvarez leaned forward. "I'm not excusing the behavior, but I am concerned. This isn't like Noah. He's always been quiet, but now it's like he's shutting down." She paused. "Has anything changed at home?" Lisa's grip on Danny's arm tightened. "Yeah," Danny thought bitterly. "I left. Again." "We'll talk to him," Lisa said softly. Mrs. Alvarez nodded. "Please do. And if you think he'd benefit from speaking to the school counselor, we'll handle it." Danny interrupted, sharper than he meant to. Lisa shot him another look. The meeting ended with vague promises and stiff goodbyes. Danny walked out of school feeling like he'd just survived an ambush, heart racing, skin too tight. Lisa waited until they were in the parking lot before rounding on him. "You can't just handle it like this is some mission, Danny. He's not a soldier. He's a kid." Danny gritted his teeth. "I know that. Do you?" Lisa's voice cracked. "Because every time you come home, you act like you can just fix everything with a few stern talks and some discipline. But this isn't the core. This is family." The words landed like a knife between the ribs. Danny opened his mouth, then closed it. What could he say? She wasn't wrong. Lisa took a shaky breath. Just talk to him. Really talk to him. Not as a Marine, as his dad. Danny watched her walk away, her shoulders tense, and for the first time in years, he felt utterly lost. Because how do you fix something when you're the one who broke it? That night, after dinner, Danny lingered outside Noah's door, listening to the soft scratch of pencil on paper. He knocked gently. "Yeah." Noah's voice was flat. Danny pushed the door open. Noah was at his desk, sketching again. The same soldier from before, but now with more detail. The curve of the helmet, the grip on the rifle. Danny sat on the edge of the bed. "Heard you had some trouble at school." Noah's pencil stilled. "Yeah. You want to tell me about it?" Noah shrugged. Danny exhaled. Mrs. Alvarez said some kid was talking crap about the Marines. Noah's jaw clenched. "He doesn't know anything." "Maybe not," Danny said carefully. "But you can't go around shoving people, Noah." Noah finally looked up, his eyes blazing. "Why not? You fight people." The words hung in the air like smoke. Danny felt the ground tilt beneath him, because Noah wasn't wrong. And that was the problem. The recording. Danny lay awake long after the house fell silent, staring at the ceiling. The conversation with Noah had ended in a stalemate, his son shutting down again, retreating behind that wall Danny couldn't seem to break through. You fight people. The accusation burned in his chest, because Noah wasn't wrong. Violence had been Danny's job for over a decade. But how did he explain to a 10-year-old that sometimes fighting was about protection, not anger? That every punch he'd ever thrown overseas was so kids like Noah wouldn't have to? Lisa stirred beside him, her breathing deep and even. He envied her ability to sleep through this turmoil. Careful not to wake her, Danny slipped out of bed and padded down the hall. He paused outside Noah's door listening. Silence. The living room couch groaned under his weight as he sank into it, rubbing his face. He needed a plan. Needed intel. Back in the Corps, when a mission went sideways, you gathered information. You observed. You adapted. His gaze landed on Noah's backpack, slumped by the front door where he dropped after school. An idea took shape, one that made his stomach twist. Danny crossed the room in 3 strides, crouching beside the bag. He unzipped it slowly, the sound impossibly loud in the quiet house. Notebooks, a half-crushed granola bar, a pencil case with the Hulk on it, and there, shoved in the front pocket, Noah's favorite beanie, the black one with the frayed edges that he never took off except at school. Danny pulled it out, turning it over in his hands. Then he reached into his own pocket and pulled out the small voice-activated recorder he'd picked up at the electronics store that afternoon. He hesitated. This was crossing a line. There was no justifying it. Not really. But the thought of Noah out there, carrying some weight Danny couldn't see, it was worse than the guilt. With careful fingers, he tucked the recorder into the beanie's inner lining, ensuring it was secure but hidden. Then he placed it back exactly where he'd found it. One day, he told himself, just one day of listening, then I'll know how to help him. The next morning, Danny watched Noah grab his backpack with a knot in his throat. The boy moved sluggishly, dark circles under his eyes. He hadn't slept well either. You feeling okay, buddy? Danny asked, forcing casualness as he poured coffee. Noah just shrugged, shoving the beanie onto his head without a second glance. Lisa pressed a kiss to Noah's forehead. Have a good day, sweetheart. Noah muttered something unintelligible and shuffled out the door to wait for the bus. As soon as it pulled away, Danny turned to Lisa. I'm going to school today. She raised an eyebrow. Why? Just want to see how he's doing. From a distance, Lisa studied him for a long moment, then sighed. Don't make it weird, Danny. The recorder weighed heavy in Danny's pocket as he sat in the elementary school parking lot that afternoon, engine off, windows cracked. Parents came and went, dropping off forgotten lunches or rushing in for early pickups. No one gave a second glance to the broad-shouldered man in the truck. Just another dad, invisible in the chaos of suburban life. When the final bell rang, kids spilled out in a wave of backpacks and laughter. Danny spotted Noah near the back, walking alone, his beanie pulled low. A group of boys jostled each other nearby, and one, taller, with a cocky swagger, bumped Noah hard enough to make him stumble. Danny's hands clenched the steering wheel. Noah kept walking, head down. The taller boy said something, grinning. His friends laughed. Noah's shoulders hunched, but he didn't turn around. Danny's vision tunneled. Every instinct screamed at him to march over there, but then Noah was gone, swallowed by the stream of students heading for the buses. Danny exhaled sharply. He'd seen enough. That night, after dinner and homework and the fragile routine of bedtime, Danny waited until the house was still. Then he locked himself in the garage, the recorder clutched in his palm. His thumb hovered over the playback button. This was wrong. He knew it was wrong. But the image of Noah walking alone, shoulders hunched against the world, it burned behind his eyelids. He pressed play. At first, just muffled sounds, fabric rustling, the squeak of bus brakes. Then classroom noise, chairs scraping, Mrs. Alvarez's voice calling the class to order. Then, clear as gunfire in the silence, "Hey, Mercer, your dad teach you how to cry in the Marines, too." A voice Danny recognized, the tall boy from the parking lot. Noah didn't respond. "What's wrong? Scared he'll get mad at you for fighting again." The boy's tone was mocking. "My brother says most of you military brats are messed up anyway. Always cry about mommy and daddy leaving." A pause. Then Noah's voice, quiet but sharp. "Shut up, Jason." "Make me," Jason taunted. A scuffle. A thud. Mrs. Alvarez's sharp boys. Then, later, in what must have been a bathroom, Noah's ragged breathing. The sound of a stifled sob. And then... So, quiet Danny almost missed it. "I hate this. I hate it. Why won't he just talk to me?" The recording ended there. Danny sat in the dark garage, the words carving into him like shrapnel. All this time, he thought Noah was angry, resentful. But what he'd heard wasn't anger. It was grief. The kind that came from loving someone who kept leaving. The kind Danny had sworn he'd never make his son feel. He pressed his palms to his eyes, but it was too late. The tears came anyway, hot and relentless. Because the truth was worse than he'd imagined. Noah wasn't pushing him away. He was waiting for Danny to stay. The confrontation. Danny didn't sleep. He sat in the garage until the pale light of dawn crept through the small high windows. The recorder clutched in his hand like a grenade with the pin pulled. His entire body hummed the kind of adrenaline he hadn't felt since Fallujah, raw, directionless, begging for release. By the time Lisa's alarm went off upstairs, he'd made his decision. He met her at the kitchen counter as she poured her first cup of coffee. She took one look at his face and froze. What happened? Danny set the recorder between them. I need you to listen to something. Her eyes flicked to the device, then back to him. Danny, what did you do? He pressed play. As Noah's muffled sobs filled the kitchen, Lisa's face went through stages Danny could track like artillery fire. Confusion, realization, horror. When it ended, her hands were shaking. You recorded him? Her voice was dangerously quiet. I had to know. You had to. Lisa slammed her mug down, coffee sloshing over the rim. He's not one of your damn recruits. Danny, he's your son. Danny flinched but held his ground. And now I know how to help him. By spying on him? By understanding him. Danny's voice cracked. You heard what that little bastard said to him. You heard how? I heard my son cry alone in a bathroom because his father won't talk to him. Lisa's eyes were bright with tears. Do you have any idea how messed up this is? The truth of it hit Danny square in the chest. He had crossed a line. But the recording wasn't the problem. It was a symptom. The real disease was everything unspoken between them, festering for years. I'm going to the school, Danny said. Lisa grabbed his arm. Oh, no, you're not. You're not storming in there like this is some... Not confront the kid. Danny gently pried her fingers loose. To talk to Noah? The school secretary recognized him immediately. Sergeant Mercer, here to see Noah? Danny forced a smile. Yes, ma'am. She buzzed him in without question, another perk of the uniform he'd stopped wearing, but never really left behind. Noah's classroom door was open. Through it, Danny saw Mrs. Alvarez writing on the whiteboard while the kids worked quietly. His son sat near the back, head down, pencil moving in short, angry strokes. Then Noah looked up. Their eyes met through the doorway. Noah's face went carefully blank, the same expression Danny had seen on 100 fresh recruits trying to hide their fear. Mrs. Alvarez noticed Danny and stepped into the hall. Is everything all right? I need 5 minutes with my son. She hesitated. We have a policy. Please. The word came out rougher than he intended. Something in his face must have convinced her. She nodded and called Noah into the hallway. Noah shuffled out, shoulders hunched, refusing to meet Danny's eyes. Am I in trouble? Danny's throat tightened. He led Noah down the hall to an empty alcove near the water fountains before crouching to his level. No, buddy, you're not in trouble. He took a deep breath. But we need to talk about Jason. Noah went rigid. How do you know about Jason? There was no easy way to say it. I heard some things. Noah's eyes narrowed. What things? Danny reached into his pocket and showed him a recorder. For 3 heartbeats. Noah just stared at it. Then his face crumpled. You spied on me? I was trying to. You're always trying to fix things. Noah's voice cracked. But you never just stay. The words landed like mortar fire. Danny reached for him, but Noah jerked back. Noah, listen. I hate you. Noah screamed, loud enough that classroom doors down the hall opened. I hate you and your stupid war, and your stupid lies about coming home. Mrs. Alvarez appeared instantly, her hand on Noah's shoulder. Noah, let's take a breath. But Noah was already running down the hall, his sobs echoing off the lockers. Danny stood frozen, the recorder still in his outstretched hand. Around him, students peered from doorways. Teachers murmured. He'd walked into a war zone and somehow, impossibly, become the enemy. Mrs. Alvarez gave him a look that mixed pity and disapproval. Perhaps you should go, Sergeant Mercer. Danny nodded numbly. As he walked back through the school, past the curious stares, one thought played on loop. You broke it worse. Lisa was waiting in the driveway when he got home, arms crossed. The school called. Danny didn't answer. He just handed her the recorder and walked inside. Upstairs, he stood in Noah's empty room, staring at the sketches taped to the wall. Soldiers, tanks, helicopters. All drawn with startling detail. All faceless. On the desk lay Noah's latest drawing. A man in uniform walking away, his back turned forever. Danny sank onto bed, the weight of his failures pressing down like a collapsed roof. He'd spent his career defusing bombs. Turns out the most dangerous one had been ticking in his own house the whole time. The aftermath. The house had never felt so empty. Danny sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched coffee Lisa had shoved in front of him an hour ago. The steam had long since faded, leaving behind a bitter, lukewarm puddle. Outside, the afternoon sun cast cheerful patterns across the linoleum, a cruel contrast to the storm raging inside him. Lisa hadn't yelled, hadn't even spoken much after he'd returned from the school, just taken one look at his face, and quietly called her mother to pick Noah up after classes. He needs space, she'd said, from both of us. The unspoken accusation hung in the air. This is your fault. Danny's phone buzzed. Another text from Corporal Hines, checking in about the upcoming reserve drill. He ignored it. The Corps felt like a lifetime ago, like something that belonged to a different man. The front door opened. Danny's head snapped up, hope flaring. But it was just Lisa, returning from the grocery store, her arms laden with bags she didn't ask him to help carry. "Where's Noah?" Danny asked, his voice rough from disuse. "Mom's taking him to the movies." Lisa set the bags down with more force than necessary. He didn't want to come home. The words landed like a punch. Danny rubbed his temples, where a headache pulsed in time with his heartbeat. "I screwed up." Lisa barked a laugh, sharp and humorless. "You think?" Danny's hands clenched. "I needed to understand. And now you do." Lisa turned to face him fully, her eyes red-rimmed. "Congratulations. Was it worth it?" Danny had no answer. Lisa exhaled sharply and began unloading groceries with jerky movements. Cereal, milk, the frozen pizzas Noah loved. Normal things for a family that suddenly felt anything but normal. "We need to fix this," Danny said. Lisa slammed the freezer door. "You don't fix this, Danny. You earn your way back. And I don't even know if that's possible this time." The finality in her voice sent a chill down his spine. Danny found himself in Noah's room that night, sitting on the too-small bed, surrounded by the remnants of his son's life. The sketches were everywhere, taped to walls, stuffed in drawers, crammed between books. He picked up one from the nightstand, a detailed rendering of a Medal of Honor, shaded with painstaking precision. Beneath it, in Noah's uneven scrawl, "For Dad." Danny's breath caught. The closet door was slightly ajar. Something glinted inside. Danny pushed it open and froze. Hanging on the back wall was Noah's uniform, a miniature set of digital camo pajama pants paired with one of Danny's old Marine shirts, the sleeves rolled up a dozen times to fit small arms. Beside it, propped against the wall, was a toy rifle made of Lego pieces, assembled with impressive detail. Danny reached out, fingers brushing the fabric. It smelled like laundry detergent and the faint, lingering scent of little boy sweat. His vision blurred. All this time, he thought Noah was pulling away. But the truth was right here. His son had been trying to reach him, in the only way he knew how, by becoming him. And Danny had been too blind, too stubborn, too absent to see it. The crunch of gravel announced his mother-in-law's car pulling into the driveway. Danny was out the front door before the engine cut off. Noah climbed out slowly, his face drawn. When he saw Danny, he stiffened. "Hey, buddy," Danny said softly. Noah didn't respond, just shouldered past him into the house. Danny caught his mother-in-law's sympathetic look before she drove away. Inside, Noah was already halfway up the stairs. "Wait," Danny called. "Please." Noah paused but didn't turn around. Danny approached slowly, like approaching a wounded animal. "I owe you an apology. A real one." Noah's shoulders hunched. "I was wrong to put that recorder in your stuff. Wrong not to just talk to you." Danny's voice cracked. "But most of all, I was wrong to make you think you weren't the most important thing in my world." Noah turned then, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Then why do you keep leaving?" The question Danny had been dreading, the one he wasn't sure he could answer. He sank onto the steps, suddenly exhausted. "When I joined the Corps, it was because I wanted to protect people. Protect you. But somewhere along the way, I got lost in it. Started thinking the missions were what mattered. He met Noah's gaze. But they weren't. You were. You are. Noah sniffed, wiping his nose on his sleeve. Jason said you like the Marines more than me. Danny's hands clenched. Jason's an idiot. A ghost of a smile flickered across Noah's face. Danny took a shaky breath. I can't promise I'll never leave again. But I can promise this. You'll always know why. And you'll always know when I'm coming back. Noah studied him for a long moment. Then, hesitantly, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. I was going to give you this. Before. Danny smoothed it out. A drawing of the two of them, standing side by side in matching uniforms. Beneath it, in wobbly letters, my hero. Something hot and painful swelled in Danny's chest. He pulled Noah into a hug, holding tight as his son finally, clutched him back. Over Noah's shoulder, Danny saw Lisa watching from the hallway, silent tears streaming down her face. For the first time in years, Danny Mercer was exactly where he was supposed to be, home. The reckoning. The next morning dawned with an unfamiliar lightness in the Mercer household. Danny woke to the smell of bacon. Real bacon, not the microwave kind Lisa usually made on busy mornings. When he shuffled into the kitchen, he found Noah perched on a stool at the counter, carefully flipping slices with a spatula twice the size of his hand. Hey, Chef, Danny said, ruffling his son's sleep-musk hair. Noah didn't flinch away. Progress. Lisa set a cup of coffee in front of Danny, her fingers lingering on his shoulder for a heartbeat longer than necessary. Another unspoken truce. Noah slid a plate of slightly charred bacon toward Danny. I made it how you like it. Extra crispy. Danny's throat tightened. How long had Noah been noticing these little details about him while he'd been too distracted to return the favor? As they ate, Noah chattered about a school project. Something about the solar system that would require a trip to the craft store. Danny listened with his whole body, leaning forward, nodding in all the right places. Then Noah's voice dropped. Jason got suspended. Danny's fork stilled. What? Mrs. Alvarez heard him telling Tyler that all Marines are baby killers. Noah's eyes flicked up, gauging Danny's reaction. She made him apologize to the whole class. The bacon turned to ash in Danny's mouth. He set down his fork carefully. Did he? Noah shrugged. Not really, but everyone knows he's lying now. Lisa's hand found Danny's under the table, squeezing tight. After breakfast, Danny drove to the hardware store alone, needing air. As he loaded bags of mulch into his truck, Lisa's flower beds weren't going to weed themselves. A familiar voice called out, Mercer, that you? Chief Warrant Officer Danvers from his old unit leaned against a nearby pickup, grinning. Heard you were back. When you're reporting for drill? Danny wiped his hands on his jeans. Next month. Danvers clapped him on the shoulder. Good man. We need you prepping the new. I'm transferring to the IRR. The words left Danny's mouth before he'd fully formed the thought. Danvers' smile vanished. The hell you are. You got 10 years in. For more and you retire. Danny looked past him, at the sun filtering through the oak trees in the parking lot, at a father and son loading lumber into a minivan, the boy chattering excitedly about a treehouse. I already did my time, Mike. Danvers studied him for a long moment, then sighed. It's the kid, isn't it? Danny didn't answer. He didn't need to. That afternoon, Danny stood in Principal Gutierrez's office, Noah fidgeting beside him. Jason's mother, a sharp-faced woman with bleached hair, sneered as they entered. This the Marine who intimidates children? Principal Gutierrez held up a hand. Mrs. Walsh, Sergeant Mercer is here at my request. He turned to Danny. We've spoken to Jason about his behavior, but given his sensitivity, I thought a mediated discussion might help. Jason slouched in his chair, glaring at Noah. Danny crouched to eye level with the boy. You know why I joined the Marines, Jason? Jason blinked, thrown. To shoot people? His mother gasped. Jason! Danny almost smiled. To protect people like you. Like Noah. Like my wife. He leaned forward. But here's the thing. Real strength isn't in putting others down. It's in lifting them up. Jason's defiance wavered. Noah stepped forward then, holding out a folded paper. Danny recognized the drawing of their matching uniforms. "My dad's my hero," Noah said quietly, "even when he's not here." The room held its breath. Jason took the paper, unfolded it, studied it. When he looked up, his eyes were suspiciously bright. "I just miss my brother. He's deployed too." Danny exhaled. The puzzle pieces clicked into place. The anger, the lashing out. He'd seen it 100 times in the barracks. Principal Gutierrez broke the silence. "Perhaps we could arrange for you boys to video call Jason's brother together, so Noah can ask questions about deployment." Noah nodded eagerly. Jason managed a small smile. As they left the office, Noah slipped his hand into Danny's, something he hadn't done since kindergarten. That night, as Danny tucked Noah into bed, his son hesitated. "Dad, are you really not going back?" Danny smoothed the covers. "I'll always be a Marine, buddy, but I don't need to be deployed to serve." He tapped Noah's chest. "My most important mission is right here." Noah's smile was the last thing Danny saw before clicking off the light. Downstairs, Lisa waited with 2 glasses of wine. She handed one to Danny. "To coming home." Danny clinked his glass against hers. "To staying." Outside, the cicadas sang in the warm California night. Inside, for the first time in years, the Mercer house was at peace. The first step. The alarm blared at 5:30 a.m., but Danny was already awake. He'd been staring at the ceiling for 20 minutes, running through the day's plan in his head. Next to him, Lisa stirred but didn't wake. She'd stayed up late grading papers, and the dark circles under her eyes told him she needed to rest. Danny slipped out of bed quietly, padding across the hall to Noah's room. He pushed the door open gently, expecting to find his son still asleep. Instead, Noah sat cross-legged on his bed, already dressed in joggers and a t-shirt, fumbling with the laces of his running shoes. "You're up early," Danny whispered. Noah looked up, his face serious. "You said 6 a.m. sharp." A warmth spread through Danny's chest. He'd made the offer half expecting Noah to forget or change his mind. A morning run together, just the two of them, before school. But here Noah was, ready before the sun. "Give me 5 minutes," Danny said. The neighborhood was quiet as they stretched at the end of the driveway, the streetlights still glowing in the pre-dawn haze. Noah mimicked Danny's movements carefully, his small face pinched with concentration as he tried to touch his toes. "Remember," Danny said, "we're not racing. Just find your rhythm." Noah nodded, bouncing on the balls of his feet. "I can keep up." Danny smiled. "I know you can." They started slow, their sneakers slapping against the pavement in uneven sync. Danny kept his pace deliberately easy, but within 2 blocks, Noah's breathing grew ragged. By the 4th block, he'd fallen half a step behind. Danny was about to suggest walking when Noah gritted his teeth and pushed ahead, his small fists pumping at his sides. Pride swelled in Danny's chest, but he reached out, gently catching Noah's shoulder. "Hey, marathon, not a sprint, remember?" Noah slowed, his chest heaving. "I just don't want to slow you down." "You're not." Danny matched his stride to Noah's. "This is exactly where I want to be." They settled into a comfortable jog, the neighborhood waking around them, a sprinkler hissing to life, an early commuter backing out of a driveway. At the turnaround point, a stray orange cat darted across their path, and Noah laughed, the sound bright in the quiet morning. On the way back, Noah reached over and grabbed Danny's hand, their sweaty palms sticking together. Danny didn't let go until they reached their driveway. Lisa stood on the porch with 2 glasses of orange juice, her eyebrows raised. Well, Noah collapsed on the front steps, gulping air. "We ran the whole thing." Danny ruffled his damp hair. "Like a pro." Noah beamed, the exhaustion momentarily forgotten. "Can we do it again tomorrow?" Lisa met Danny's eyes over their son's head. Something unspoken passed between them. A recognition, a promise. "Every morning," Danny said, "rain or shine." That afternoon, Danny sat in the VA office, tapping his fingers against his knees. The counselor, a heavy-set man with a kind face and a Navy tattoo, glanced up from Danny's paperwork. IRR request, huh? Danny nodded. Family needs me stateside. The counselor studied him. You sure about this? Once you go individual ready reserve, there's no... I'm sure. The pen felt heavy in Danny's hand as he signed the forms. Not an ending, he told himself. Just a different kind of service. At dinner that night, Noah couldn't stop talking about the run. How his legs hurt, but in a good way. How he'd beaten Jason Walsh's best mile time by a whole minute. Lisa listened with a soft smile, her foot hooked around Danny's ankle under the table. When the conversation lulled, Danny cleared his throat. So, I have some news. Noah froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. Danny reached into his pocket and slid his new VA ID card across the table. Starting next month, I'll be working at Camp Pendleton as a civilian instructor. No more deployments. Noah's eyes went wide. Really? Really? Lisa squeezed Danny's hand as Noah launched himself across the table, wrapping his arms around Danny's neck. The force of the hug knocked Danny back in his chair, but he held on tight, breathing in the scent of Sun's shampoo. Something fruity, something young, something wonderfully ordinary. Later, as Danny tucked Noah into bed, his son yawned. Dad, what if I can't keep up tomorrow? Danny smoothed the covers. Then we'll walk. Then we'll try again the next day. He turned out the light. That's the thing about moving forward, Noah. You just have to take the first step. In the dark, Noah's hand found his. I'm glad you're home. Danny swallowed around the lump in his throat. Me too, buddy. Me too. Downstairs, he found Lisa waiting with 2 glasses of wine. She handed him one. To new beginnings. Danny clinked his glass against hers. Outside, the cicada sang. Inside, the house was quiet, whole alive. For the first time in a long time, Danny Mercer was exactly where he belonged. The unexpected storm. The rain started at midnight. A gentle patter at first, then a relentless downpour that hammered against the roof like machine gun fire. Danny lay awake, listening to the storm rage outside, his body tense. He'd never liked thunderstorms. Too much like incoming artillery. Next to him, Lisa slept peacefully, her breathing slow and even. Danny envied her ability to sleep through anything. A soft whimper cut through the noise of the rain. Danny was out of bed before he fully processed the sound, his bare feet slapping against the cold hardwood as he hurried down the hall. Noah's door stood slightly ajar, just as it had every night since their reconciliation. Inside, Noah thrashed beneath his blankets, his face contorted in fear. No, don't go, please. Danny's heart clenched. He knelt beside the bed, placing a gentle hand on Noah's shoulder. Hey, buddy, it's just a dream. Noah's eyes flew open, wild and unfocused for a terrifying second before landing on Danny. Then he launched himself into Danny's arms with enough force to knock them both backward. Whoa, easy there. Danny adjusted his grip, holding Noah tight as the boy trembled against him. Bad dream? Noah nodded into his shoulder, his small hands clutching Danny's shirt like a lifeline. You were gone, and the bad men came. And I couldn't. His voice broke. Danny smoothed Noah's damp hair. Listen to me. I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere. Outside, lightning flashed, illuminating the room in stark white light. Thunder boomed seconds later, shaking the windows. Noah flinched violently. Danny remembered his first firefight, the way his body had reacted to every explosion, every ricochet. Noah's fear wasn't just about the storm. It was about losing control, losing safety, losing him. Come on. Danny stood, lifting Noah with him. Let's go watch the storm. Noah pulled back, his face pale. What? No. Trust me. Danny carried Noah downstairs to the living room, with a large picture window offered a panoramic view of the storm. Rain streaked the glass in twisting rivers. Lightning split the sky like fractures in a broken mirror. At first, Noah buried his face in Danny's neck. But gradually, as Danny pointed out the different cloud formations and explained how thunder worked, Noah peeked out. That one looked like a dragon. Noah whispered as a particularly bright fork of lightning illuminated the sky. Danny smiled. Yeah, it did. They sat there for hours, watching the storm rage and fade, until Noah's breathing evened out and his grip loosened. When the first hints of dawn painted the sky pink, Noah was asleep in his arms, his face finally peaceful. Lisa found him there as the sun rose, curled together in the armchair by the window. She pressed a kiss to Danny's forehead, her lips warm against his skin. "You okay?" Danny looked down at Noah, his son, his responsibility, his second chance, and nodded. "We both are." That afternoon, Danny stood in the VA counselor's office again, this time holding a different set of papers. The counselor, Petty Officer Ruiz, raised an eyebrow. "Parenting classes?" Danny set the forms on the desk. "For veterans with kids. You said they started a new program." Ruiz smiled. "They fill up fast." "Then put me on the list." As Danny walked out into the sunlight, his phone buzzed. A text from Lisa. "Noah told his entire class about storm training with you. Now all the kids want a Marine dad." Danny laughed, the sound foreign but welcome in his chest. He was still smiling when he pulled into the school parking lot for pickup. Noah burst out the doors, running full tilt toward the truck, a paper clutched in his hand. "Dad, look what I drew." Danny took the paper, a crayon masterpiece of two stick figures standing before a window, lightning flashing outside. Beneath it, in Noah's uneven scrawl, "Me and Dad watching the storm. We weren't scared." Something hot and bright swelled in Danny's chest. He pulled Noah into a hug, ignoring the curious looks from other parents. "Best drawing ever," he murmured into Noah's ear. Noah pulled back, his face serious. "Can we do it again? The storm watching." Danny buckled him into the passenger seat. "Anytime, buddy. Anytime." As they drove home, Noah chattered about his day, his words tumbling over each other in excitement. Danny listened with his whole body, his hands steady on the wheel, his heart full. The storm had passed. The sun was out. And for the first time in a long time, Danny Mercer wasn't just surviving. He was living. The wounds that bind. The smell of antiseptic clung to the VA hospital corridors as Danny guided Noah to the maze of white walls and fluorescent lights. The boy's small hand felt damp in his steps slowing as they approached room 214. "You sure about this?" Danny crouched at Noah's level, adjusting the collar of his son's miniature dress blues, a surprise gift Lisa had helped arrange. Noah nodded, his throat working. "He's really missing both legs." "Above the knees, yeah." Danny kept his voice steady. "But trust me, Corporal Reynolds is still one of the toughest men I've ever served with." The door stood slightly ajar. Danny knocked twice before pushing it open. The hospital bed seemed to swallow the wiry, red-headed man propped up against the pillows. His face lit up when he saw Danny, then softened further when he noticed Noah. "Well, I'll be damned. Mercer brought me a tiny warrior." Noah stiffened beside him, but Danny squeezed his shoulder. "Noah, this is Corporal James Reynolds. We served together in Fallujah." Reynolds extended a hand scarred by shrapnel. "Heard a lot about you, kid. Your dad wouldn't shut up." "Okay, that's enough out of you." Danny cut in, but he was smiling. Noah shook Reynolds' hand carefully. "Dude, does it hurt?" The corporal's grin didn't waver. Not as much as watching the Dodgers lose. Noah giggled, the tension breaking like a snapped rubber band. For the next hour, Reynolds regaled Noah with exaggerated stories of Danny's service. The time he tripped over his own boots during inspection, the infamous Chow Hall incident involving 3 pounds of spoiled shrimp. Danny protested half-heartedly, but his chest ached watching Noah laugh, watching the way his son's eyes kept drifting to Reynolds' wheelchair without fear, only curiosity. When visiting hours ended, Reynolds caught Danny's arm as Noah stepped into the hallway. "You're doing right by him, Sarge." Danny glanced at his son, now chatting animatedly with a nurse about the wheelchair's mechanics. Trying to... Reynolds' expression turned serious. "Kids don't need heroes. They need fathers who show up." He nodded toward Noah. "That boy's got both." The ride home was quiet until Noah suddenly spoke from the back seat. "Dad, why don't you use your wheelchair?" Danny's grip tightened on the steering wheel. The scars along his thigh burned under his jeans. "Who told you about that?" "Mom said you got hurt bad but wouldn't take the chair." Danny exhaled through his nose. He'd never spoken about the IED that had nearly cost him his leg, not even to Lisa. The VA therapist had called it denial. He'd called it survival. Sometimes, he said carefully, it's easier to pretend the bad stuff didn't happen. Noah's reflection in the rear-view mirror frowned. But Corporal Reynolds isn't pretending. The simple truth of it hit Danny like a mortar round. When they pulled into the driveway, Danny didn't immediately get out. He turned to face his son. You're right, and starting tomorrow, I'm going to be more like Corporal Reynolds. Noah tilted his head. How? By being honest. Danny reached back and squeezed Noah's knee, even when it's hard. That night, after tucking Noah in, Danny found Lisa waiting with 2 mugs of tea at the kitchen table. She pushed one toward him. He told me about Reynolds. Said he wants to visit again next week. Danny wrapped his hands around the warm mug. We will... Lisa studied him. And will you finally keep your physical therapy appointments? The old defensiveness rose in his throat, but he swallowed it down. Made one for Monday. Lisa's eyes widened. Danny took her hand, tracing the delicate bones of her wrist. No more hiding. From either of you. Upstairs, Noah's laughter drifted down as he video called his grandparents, no doubt retelling Reynolds' outlandish stories. The sound wrapped around Danny like a salve, soothing wounds he'd carried for years. Later, when the house was quiet, Danny stood before the bathroom mirror and did something he hadn't done since the explosion. He examined the jagged scars running down his right leg without flinching, without turning away. They were part of him, just like the shrapnel in Reynolds' spine, just like the fear in Noah's eyes during thunderstorms. Not weaknesses, just proof they'd survived. Danny turned off the light and went to bed, where Lisa slept with one hand outstretched, waiting for his. He took it, and for the first time in a very long time, Danny Mercer didn't feel like half a man. He felt whole. The unseen battle. The envelope sat innocently on the kitchen counter, its official Department of Defense seal glaring up at Danny like an accusation. He'd known it was coming. The mandatory recall notice for all IRR members with his specialty code. Yet holding the thick packet in his hands, made his coffee turn to acid in his stomach. Lisa froze in the doorway, her gym bag slipping from her shoulder. Is that? Yeah. Danny's thumb traced the embossed eagle. They want me in Kuwait for 6 months. The silence that followed was louder than any explosion Danny had ever heard. Noah's footsteps pounded down the stairs before either of them could speak. Dad, you gotta see my SOC. He skidded to stop, his eyes darting between them. What's wrong? Lisa reached for the envelope, but Danny shook his head minutely. Not like this. Nothing, buddy. Danny forced a smile. Just grown-up paperwork. Noah's gaze lingered on the envelope before he shrugged and launched into a play-by-play of his soccer goal at recess. Danny listened with his whole body, memorizing the way Noah's hands moved when he talked, the gap where his front tooth used to be. Danny waited until Noah was at school before spreading the documents across the kitchen table. Lisa stood with her back to him, scrubbing an already clean coffee mug. It's not a deployment, Danny said. Just training NATO allies. Low risk. The mug clattered into the drying rack. You promised. I know. Lisa turned, her eyes bright. Then fight it. It's not that simple. Make it simple. Her voice cracked. You have a medical discharge waiting if you just... I'm not broken, Lisa. The words hung between them, sharp as shattered glass. Lisa exhaled slowly. No, but we might be if you leave again. Danny reached for her, but she sidestepped his hand and walked out, the screen door slamming behind her. That afternoon, Danny sat in Principal Gutierrez's office again, but this time he was the one asking for help. The principal steepled his fingers. You want to prepare Noah for a potential deployment. Danny nodded, but I don't know how. Gutierrez slid a pamphlet across the desk. We have a military family support group. Meets Thursdays. Danny stared at the smiling faces on the brochure. Noah needs more than platitudes. Then give him the truth, Gutierrez said gently. Children are more resilient than we think. The truth came that night under the stars, sitting on the back porch with Noah between them, a blanket wrapped around all three of them like a cocoon. Lisa spoke first. "Remember how we talked about Daddy's job sometimes taking him away?" Noah stiffened. "You're leaving again." Danny's throat tightened. "Maybe, but this time we'll be ready." He pulled out a small notebook. "I thought we could make some rules." Noah eyed the book suspiciously. "Like what?" "Rule 1. Danny wrote carefully. "No matter where I am, we talk every Sunday." "FaceTime?" Noah asked. "FaceTime," Danny confirmed. "Rule 2, Lisa added. "We make a countdown chain when you leave." Noah brightened slightly. "With the rings we tear off?" "Exactly." Danny turned to a fresh page. "Rule 3. You come home," Noah interrupted, his small hand gripping Danny's. "No matter what." Danny's vision blurred. He pulled Noah into his lap, pressing his face into his son's hair. "No matter what." Above them, a meteor streaked across the sky, a fleeting spark against the darkness. Lisa's fingers intertwined with Danny's. They sat there long after Noah fell asleep, the notebook filling with promises neither of them knew if they could keep. 2 days later, Danny stood before the VA review board, his medical file open on the table. The presiding officer, a grizzled colonel with a prosthetic hand, eyed him. "You're requesting discharge based on?" Danny placed Noah's drawing beside the file, the one of them watching the storm together. "Based on being needed elsewhere, sir." The colonel studied the crayon artwork for a long moment before sliding it toward the other board members. When he spoke again, his voice was softer. "You realize this could affect your benefits?" Danny thought of Noah's face when he'd explained the deployment, the way Lisa's hands had trembled when she thought he wasn't looking. "Some things are worth more than benefits, sir." The colonel nodded slowly. "Dismissed, Sergeant." Danny was halfway to the door when the man added, "For what it's worth, my son's 28 now. Still mad I missed his 10th birthday for a training exercise." Danny didn't turn around, but his shoulders straightened just a fraction. The recall notice was still on the counter when Danny got home. Lisa stood beside it, her arms crossed. "Well," Danny pulled the VA decision letter from his pocket and tore it down the middle. Lisa's breath caught. "They'll find someone else for Kuwait," Danny said quietly. Noah barreled into the kitchen then, skidding to a stop when he saw their faces. "What's happening?" Danny scooped him up, pressing a kiss to his forehead. "Nothing, buddy. Just making sure I'm right where I belong." Outside, the first autumn leaves spiraled from the trees, red and gold against the blue sky. Inside, the Mercer family stood together, not perfect, not untouched by war, but whole. And for Danny Mercer, that was victory enough. The home front. The smell of cinnamon and burnt sugar filled the Mercer kitchen as Noah carefully stirred the batter, his tongue poking out in concentration. Danny hovered nearby, ready to catch the bowl if it slipped, while Lisa snapped photos from the breakfast nook. "Tilt the whisk the other way, buddy," Danny murmured, adjusting Noah's grip, "like you're scooping the air in." Noah scowled but adjusted his technique. "Why can't we just use the mixer?" "Because some things are worth doing slow," Lisa said, smiling over her coffee. Danny caught her eye and winked. 3 weeks since he'd torn up the recall paperwork. 3 weeks of mornings making pancakes, afternoons helping with homework, evenings spent sprawled on the living room floor building Lego forts. Ordinary moments that felt like miracles. The doorbell rang just as Noah was pouring batter onto the griddle. "I'll get it." Noah abandoned the spatula and bolted, leaving Danny to rescue the rapidly browning pancake. Lisa stood to follow, but Danny caught her wrist. "Wait." A beat of silence. Then Noah's excited shriek, "Uncle Reynolds!" Danny barely had time to register the wheelchair in their doorway before Noah was launching himself at Corporal Reynolds, who caught him with a grunt and a laugh. "Whoa there, Private. Save some of that energy for PT." Lisa's hand flew to her mouth. "James? What are you? Blame your husband?" Reynolds said, wheeling into the kitchen with Noah hanging off his chair like a monkey. Said something about Veterans Day pancakes needing a special guest. Danny shrugged, but his chest felt warm watching Noah cling to Reynolds like he was Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny combined. "Figure we could all use some reminding." Reminding of what? Noah asked, already stealing bacon from plate. Reynolds met Danny's gaze over Noah's head. That coming home isn't the end of the story, kiddo. It's the best part. The kitchen became a war zone of flour and laughter. Reynolds taught Noah how to flip pancakes one-handed, Marine-approved technique. While Lisa and Danny worked in comfortable silence, their hips brushing as they passed each other. Halfway through breakfast, Reynolds cleared his throat. So, heard you turned down Kuwait. Danny stiffened, glancing at Noah, but his son was too busy constructing a pancake skyscraper to notice. Had better offers, Danny said lightly. Reynolds nodded toward the VA letter peeking from Danny's back pocket. And the medical discharge? Lisa's fork clinked against her plate. Danny exhaled, still thinking about it. Noah looked up then, syrup shining on his chin. Thinking about what? The table went quiet. Danny reached over and wiped Noah's face with a napkin. Remember how we talk about Daddy's leg hurting sometimes? Noah nodded solemnly. Well, the doctors say if I want to stop hurting so much, I might need to stop being a Marine. Noah's eyes widened. But you love being a Marine. Danny's throat tightened. Not as much as I love being your dad. Reynolds suddenly became very interested in cutting his pancakes. Lisa reached for Danny's hand under the table. Noah chewed his lip, considering this. Then he slid from his chair and climbed into Danny's lap, wrapping his sticky arms around Danny's neck. I like you better as my dad anyway. Danny buried his face in Noah's hair, breathing in the scent of maple syrup and little boy's sweat. When he looked up, Reynolds was grinning, and Lisa's eyes shone with unshed tears. The moment stretched, sweet and fragile, until Reynolds cleared his throat again. So, who's teaching this kid proper push-up form? Because that pancake flip needs work. Noah shrieked with laughter as Danny tossed him over one shoulder fireman style, marching toward the living room. Prepare to be schooled, Corporal. Lisa shook her head, but her smile could have powered the whole block. Later, after Reynolds had left and Noah was tucked in bed, Danny found Lisa on the back porch, staring at the stars. You gonna mail that? She nodded to the VA, letter still in his pocket. Danny pulled it out, the paper worn soft at the edges from how often he'd folded and unfolded it. Part of me still feels like I'm quitting. Lisa turned to face him fully. You once told Noah real strength is lifting others up. She placed a hand over his heart. So lift, Danny. Lift us. The letter fluttered to the patio table between them. The words, honorable discharge, catching the moonlight. Inside, Noah's laughter drifted through an open window as he recounted the day's adventures to his stuffed dog. The sound wrapped around Danny like armor, stronger than any flak jacket. He pulled Lisa close, resting his chin atop her head. Above them, the stars spun, indifferent to the small lives below. But here, on this patch of concrete, in this fragile bubble of peace, Danny Mercer finally understood his mission. Some battles weren't fought with rifles and grenades. The most important ones were won with pancakes and patience, and showing up day after day after day. And for the first time in his life, Danny was all in. The new mission. The morning of Noah's 10th birthday dawned with an unexpected summer storm, the kind that rattled windows and sent the Mercer's old oak tree thrashing against the house. Danny stood at the kitchen window, watching rain sheet across the backyard, where a dozen brightly wrapped presents now sat soaked under the collapsed remains of what was supposed to be a pirate-themed party tent. Lisa came up behind him, pressing a warm mug of coffee into his hands. We could move it inside. Danny shook his head, nodding upstairs where Noah's excited footsteps thundered back and forth. He's been planning this backyard treasure hunt for months. As if on cue, Noah appeared at the bottom of the stairs, his pirate hat already askew. Is it? He froze at the sight of the storm, his face crumbling. Danny was moving before the first tear fell. Ahoy, Captain. Change of plans. He dropped to one knee, wincing only slightly at the familiar twinge his leg, the one that still acted up before rainstorms. What do real pirates do when they hit rough seas? Noah sniffled. Find a new course? Exactly. Danny pulled a crumpled map from his pocket, one he'd stayed up half the night modifying. Turns out First Mate Reynolds scouted an even better route. Indoor treasure trail through enemy territory. Noah's eyes widened as he traced the path leading from the attic to the basement. There's X's in everything. Lisa squeezed Danny's shoulder as Noah raced off to assemble his crew of neighborhood kids. When did you? 3 a.m. Danny grinned. Used your good eyeliner for the bloodstains. The resulting shriek of laughter from upstairs told him the kids had already found the first clue taped to the attic door, a plastic skeleton with a note between its teeth warning of mutinous Marines ahead. By the time Corporal Reynolds arrived, wheeling to the front door with an eye patch and a bag of gold chocolate coins, the house had transformed into a riotous pirate haven. Construction paper bones lined the hallway. Danny's old camouflage netting hung from the ceiling, and shrieks of delight echoed every time another booby trap was sprung. Reynolds surveyed the chaos with approval. Nice work, Sarge, though that one-leg skeleton by the bathroom's a little on the nose. Danny laughed, tossing him a beer. Says a man with the peg leg made of PVC pipe. They watched as Noah led his friends to the final challenge. A pillow fort ship they had to sail across the living room sea while dodging Danny's carefully aimed Nerf cannon fire. Lisa peered at Danny's side, her phone buzzing. It's the VA. Your discharge paperwork went through. Danny's breath caught. After 20 years, it was official. He was a civilian. Reynolds clinked his bottle against Danny's. Welcome to the other side, brother. Noah chose that moment to barrel into Danny's legs. His treasure map clutched triumphantly. We beat your traps. Do we get the gold now? Danny hoisted him up, ignoring the twinges back. Noah was getting too big for this, but neither of them cared. Aye, Captain. But first, he nodded toward the front door. Noah's eyes widened as he spotted the enormous wrapped rectangle leaning against the wall. Is that? Only if you promise not to mutiny, Danny said, setting him down. The wrapping paper flew like confetti as Noah and his crew uncovered a custom-made treehouse blueprint, signed by Reynolds and labeled Mercer Family Fortress. Phase 1. Noah's voice trembled. We're really building it? Danny knelt, meeting his son eye to eye. Every weekend until it's done. Your mission, should you choose to accept it. Noah's answering hug nearly knocked them both over. That night, after the last guest had gone home and the storm had passed, Danny stood on the back porch watching Noah and Reynolds examine the oak tree by flashlight, their excited voices carrying through the damp air. Lisa joined him, pressing something cold into his hand. Not his VA ID, but shiny new contractor's license with Mercer and Son Construction embossed across the top. Danny's throat tightened. When did you? While you were busy being Pirate King. She leaned into him as Noah's laughter rang out, clear and bright under the newly visible stars. Welcome home, Marine. Danny pulled her close, breathing in the sense of rain and birthday cake and the impossible rightness of this moment. Somewhere along the way, without realizing it, he'd crossed into uncharted territory, a life beyond uniforms and orders, where the most important battles were fought with love and lumber and showing up for the small moments. And as Noah turned, waving the flashlight wildly, his pirate hat still stubbornly clinging to his head, Danny knew one thing for certain. This was his greatest mission yet. If this story of love and second chances moved you, hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life inspiration. Tell us in the comments, what's the moment that changed everything for you? And don't forget to share this with anyone who needs reminding that sometimes the bravest battle is the one fought at home.